So our next speaker will be participating in the NSA Showcase on Saturday. She'll be presenting a piece that has two audiences. The first half is for coaches, the second half is for athletes, and she would appreciate feedback on anything she could realistically do between now and Saturday. I think you'll see that her piece is pretty polished, so I'd be surprised if we can come up with anything major for you, Abby. Our next speaker is an expert in the field of sports psychology and is here to share a few ideas on mental toughness, as well as to demonstrate a mental skill to help athletes improve performance. Please welcome Abby Keenan.
You're going to hear that mental toughness is a choice. That's not true. Mental toughness is a series of choices. Choices we have to talk about. Because choices like these impact whether or not your athletes develop a foundation of mental skills. Skills that boost performance, create consistency, and most importantly, keep your kids in love with their sport. About 15 years ago, I had one of the most important swim meets of my life. And let's face it, after a pretty crappy warm-up, I was standing on deck thinking, man, this pool is so cold. Why did my coach think it was a good idea to put me in the championship relay? And man, I'm really hungry. As a coach, have you ever had that athlete share with you something they really didn't want to do? For me, that was swimming the 200 IM, all 4 strokes back-to-back, really long event, yeah, not even with a barf bag. Oh, and swimming the championship relay. So back on deck, my hands were shaking, mind racing, heart pounding. I tried to get into the zone, whatever that was, so I listened to music and stretched and jumped around. But the look on my face behind the block told you everything you needed to know about my upcoming race. As a coach, if you see your athletes looking like that, what do you think is going on mentally? Now, I wasn't what you would call an exceptional swimmer. You could think of me more as delightfully average. What I had going for me was that I worked really hard in practice. What I learned was that mismanagement of nerves held me back. Inability to calm myself down created inconsistency, and lack of mental toughness cost me enjoyment. And what most athletes don't recognize is that mental toughness isn't just a choice behind the block or at the starting line or running out onto the field, but that it's a sequence of choices. Intentional choices. Day in, day out, demanding, not always fun, sometimes feels insignificant, but is ultimately rewarding choices. This is like choosing between waking up at sunrise for a run or hitting that snooze button a few times. Or putting in purposeful effort during drills and practice, or going through the motions. And in not always recognizing the power of these choices, it's no wonder that less than 6% of high school athletes in the U.S. go on to play their sport at the NCAA level. It's time we empower our athletes sooner to make small choices that have a big impact. Sorry, I want to make sure I was there. And in doing so, we help them to reach goals, to enjoy their sport, because mental skills exist and can be trained. Athletes can learn to manage nerves, build confidence, embrace the process, pay attention to the right thing at the right time. But to do so, that choice often begins with you as coaches. And yes, we recognize it's not Kirby Smart on the field, it's the Georgia Bulldogs. It's not Bob Bowman in the water, it's Michael Phelps. But you have the relationship, the trust, the pulse on what's going on with your athletes to be able to suggest and support. So it all starts with one question. What choices are you helping your athletes make? And then this will be part 2. Do you remember being in school and hearing the fire alarm? Oh my gosh. That noise often has a panicky, negative response in kids. And you know why? Not because it's obviously really loud, but because that sound lets them know that something could be on fire. As in, we need to drop everything, get out of the building as quickly as we can, oh, but do so, please, in an orderly fashion. However, if one of us were to catch on fire, what is it that we are supposed to do?
Stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. Exactly. Yeah. Here's the thing. Every single day, our brains catch on fire because of negative and ineffective thoughts. Thoughts that burn down your confidence, hinder your abilities, and prevent you from performing at your best. When I work with individual athletes and teams, one of the skills that we talk about to improve performance, I like to call stop, drop, and roll. So what we're going to do, I'd love for you to take a moment and think about common negative thoughts. Sport, school, work, life, anywhere that they can come from. What are some common negative thoughts? Let's hear it.
I'm not fast enough.
I'm not fast enough.
Who
Not
am
good
I?
enough.
Who am I? I'm not good enough. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing because the reality is we as humans have this negativity bias. Meaning that as us, it's not if negative thoughts are happening, but when. So when they do, it's important to be prepared. Know what to do next. So let's take the thought, I'm not good enough, which is very similar to I'm not fast enough. I would bet that many of us in this room have had that thought before. I'm not good enough. So we're going to walk through stop, drop, and roll to put out that fire. So the first thing we're going to do is stop. Now, let's put this in the context of running, just for an example. If you are running, I am not asking you to physically pull yourself over and stop. But rather, it's time to mentally pause. To recognize when I tell myself I'm not good enough, it's doing nothing for me. It's actually preventing me from running well. Maybe it's downgrading my form, stealing my energy. So we're going to stop. Next, we're going to drop that thought. To do so, mentally, that could be like seeing that thought, choosing to draw a big red X through it. Or visualizing that thought as kind of like a black cloud and then mentally pushing it away. Or my personal favorite from a past client, see the thought, drop it in a toilet, flush. So creative. Physically, to drop that thought, you could touch your watch face, roll a bracelet back and forth, tap your leg twice. Right here, we are creating that environment to extinguish the fire. Last, of course, we gotta roll. So as we're rolling, now we have this void because we've had a drop. So to fill that void, we're going to think something more positive or effective. This could be like you being motivational, kind of like your own cheerleader. I am good enough. I can do this. Let's go. Or it could be you being instructional, giving yourself something specific, often technique-oriented to focus on in the moment. Let's say a hill is coming up. You can tell yourself, pace and posture. Or drive knees, drop arms. Lastly, you could go neutral. And what that means is you are taking in your surroundings. What's then and there that you could not have an interpretation about, have no bias, but it's going to ground you in that present moment. This could be like telling yourself, I finished this route before, if you have. I'm halfway through my run, if you are. Regardless of which one you choose, sometimes you have to put that thought on repeat until the fire is actually out. So, if your brain's on fire, you're thinking something that doesn't help you to move forward or to perform, the good news is you know 3 words. Let me see it and hear it. Everybody with me.
Stop,
drop,
and roll.
Thank you.
She's so good.
Well, that has taken a very long time and a lot of practice.
A lot of practice, a lot of work, but a lot of natural charm. Sandy, what do you got?
Okay, am I the only person that saw two completely different human beings out here? Completely different human beings. Do you do the second part much more
All
often
the
than you do the first part?
All the time.
Okay, the second part you were so animated, and that's, the first thing I wrote down was needs more animation.
Okay.
Face, body, and energy. So one of my suggestions would be, now over here, when you're standing on the block waiting to do this race that you don't want to do, tell me what you say there. You're standing there and you've got these things running through your head that you're going to tell the athletes later to stop, drop, and roll, but what's going through your head?
Oh, like I can't believe my coach put me in the championship relay and this water's really cold. That part?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you're hungry.
And I'm really hungry.
So the water, I think the water was really cold, it was the first one.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to see you act that.
Okay.
Not necessarily jumping in the water, because you weren't at
Yeah.
that point. But that's a chance, and you use this really well. Here I am talking to the audience, here I am over here in story and memory of what was going on. You made that delineation really well.
Okay.
But when you're over here, I really want to see, this over here looks like an announcer, this over here needs to be your teenage self that day. I want to see you live that day.
Okay.
So when you're, I mean, start like taking your stance. I can't believe the coach has put me into this. That water looks so cold.
Oh, no, it didn't look cold. It was freezing.
Okay, and so whatever, however you want to say
Yeah.
that. And then what was the second thing you said?
Uh,
The water looks so cold.
Yeah, so those were the first two, and the last one was just a humor. I'm really hungry.
I'm starving. I could eat the stupid floating buoys over there. How am I going to write it? I want to see you
Okay.
really just get totally into it. So play
Okay.
with that piece.
Okay.
Play with it and get silly. Because the first piece
Yeah.
needs the animation that you have in the second piece.
Okay.
Fat, you're so polished. You are. That is, all right, I'm going to let everybody else chime in and then I might have some extra.
Great. Who else for Abby? Chrissy.
I'm not gonna give you anything other than a big old fat, because
gosh.
I loved it. Your energy's fabulous, your organization, you have taken every point that we've given over the last few months and put it in. And you've been working with my girl Candace, I think, because I can see a little bit of that swagger going on. So, I think it's fabulous. You're ready.
Thank you so much.
It's awesome.
I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Agreed, so good. I'm wondering though, the one thing I wrote down is what would it be like if the fire alarm, you didn't say anything about the fire
Yeah.
alarm, you just went to that slide and let it go, bah, bah, and let us go like, what? And then say something about the fire alarm. Like you said, ask the question first, have you ever heard a fire alarm? I think it could be more engaging and just a thought.
Okay, do you have any,
I thought-
what that could look like?
I thought you could say, do you feel kind of panicky hearing that even now?
Yeah, so I was thinking if I saw reactions in the audience of like, holy crap, because you guys, a lot of you have seen it before. But I thought I could maybe say something off the cuff like, it has this panicky reaction in kids and maybe some other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just kind of figured I'd see.
Yeah,
what
but just don't
reaction
ask the
was.
question first about, have you had
Oh.
a fire alarm? Let the fire alarm go off.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I thought when I saw,
I
but
thought the
just,
same thing.
Yeah, it gets the surprise.
And if you,
Yeah.
if
When you
you,
say the fire alarm first.
if you have that go and then you say, don't you just feel panicky even now?
yeah.
It's like we felt panicky.
You know there's
then,
not a fire, but they're panicky, something.
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you invent yourself.
Yeah.
Because it
Okay.
does, like, I don't,
You
So
have
then I
a
guess-
moment there that could be like,
It could be,
where we're
like,
sitting
really
there going like,
impactful.
what?
Okay. So
and it's a
then,
nice audience interaction.
yeah, that's true. So I put the second title slide so it could kind of feel like a new part almost for people that didn't know. Excuse me. So take that out and then just jump from the black to the fire alarm.
That's what I would do.
That second part, you think?
That's the
Yeah,
Okay.
because you can edit
It's just
it,
fine.
you can edit the film.
Yeah, it's just the
You'll
title
edit the
slide.
film.
As long as it's in your introduction, that
Yeah.
your presentation is in
So
two
it just
pieces.
goes
But
from
she'll make, but also, but it's
That one.
clear,
to that one, and then it goes to the fire alarm.
but it's clear that you're stepping into another presentation,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So
I just want to
think
make
you
sure.
could say, okay, presentation number 2, to signal the fact that
Oh,
if you
okay.
didn't notice, the introducer said there are 2 parts to this. Done with that, now on to the next one.
And you can do that,
Oh, you
absolutely.
can? Okay.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
gonna edit, he's
Yeah.
gonna edit. You're not writing this together as one
I just
whole
didn't know if
thing.
I could like be candid
Absolutely.
and kind of,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
That's really good to know,
It's
so I didn't know that.
it's your stage, be
Yes.
comfortable.
Okay,
Yeah.
Be
And
comfortable.
you've decided to do two shorter pieces.
Smart.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
tell
start with the
everybody,
fire
yeah.
alarm. All right, you're gonna know what's coming, all of you.
But we will look sharp.
I know, well, also stop.
Everyone else is gonna be like, holy crap.
My question is, do you want pictures of the audience freaking out?
Sure.
Since all
Yeah.
There we go.
Because you happen to have the photographer.
I know.
Yeah, right.
This is very helpful.
Okay, interesting, all right.
I have a little tweak. You look serious when you're starting out part number one, so I think the funny part, like the funny cues weren't quite there. I wasn't sure you were being funny, I didn't know, sort of until you got into it, I'm really hungry, and then I was a little bit lagging. So I thought that if you would take us into the pool, so get us there and then do your series, that little twist that says, okay, I'm in the pool and I love your, so we know, you
Yeah.
know. Also, I don't know about the word crappy, I don't know if
Okay.
that's a little hard, I don't know. That's a personal thing.
Okay.
What else, Steve?
I mean, just, it's great, you're stepping on the gas there, like you really put your attention to really round it out, so you're ready to go, so I'd echo that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, oh, sorry, ooh, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
You guys go.
No, I was just saying, after seeing it on Saturday, you've been able to incorporate some of the suggestions from Saturday in there.
Yeah.
And it was so much more polished today than it was then. I realized it was really cold in that room
Dude, it was freezing.
like that. But you did a great job of taking it even this last few days.
Okay.
Very impressed.
Thank you.
And now it's your
I was about to say, I
turn.
think you're up.
You know what I love is that I love the concise of stop, drop, and roll, because I'm so into Tony Robbins when
Oh, gosh, don't.
kill
say
the
that.
throat, kill the thought when it's a baby.
Yeah.
You know, all of those big like one-liners he has, and then you're able to translate that to stop, drop, and roll. I'm like, oh, I still love that. The pattern interrupt, because that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it that you made that. And I also love it too that there is that reference to somebody who has this, that's up to you. But I do love it because you're like, stop, drop, and roll, and this is something that's
Yeah, because
concise
this is
from
something
it.
we came up with based on theory and research, off, much like Tony Robbins did. So I didn't know that he did that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, but there's all three aspects.
Yeah.
The energy goes where attention flows. I mean, that's your stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about, which is beautiful. And then what I loved, your first presentation to the coaches, when you said to them, ask your coaches, what choices are you supporting your athletes in making? As a coach, those people are watching them, so what choices? I love it when you put it back on a coach and you ask them, what choices are you making in your life? Because that's what they're watching. And woo, that gets you like, woo, woo. Because
Okay.
then, I don't know what you're doing with those coaches, but if you could coach me into how they're watching me doing what I'm doing.
Oh, I see what you're
Ooh,
saying. Okay.
that's
So kind of
yummy.
like how are you practicing what we
Yeah,
all should
yeah.
be preaching so that your
Or what
athletes
you're
can emulate
preaching,
that.
how are you practicing
Okay.
what you're preaching? I
Okay.
think that, to me, that's an engagement there, because
So
I'd
you
be
think
like,
that's a better question than asking them what choices they're helping athletes make?
because they're I think, like, well, you
Okay.
can say, what choices are you supporting your athletes in making? But most importantly, you, as a
I
witness
see what
to
you're saying.
this, what choices are you making? Because they are watching you.
Oh.
They are watching you. And that is how you are
I mean,
very
it's true.
impacting their
And
lives.
so many coaches have really good intentions. but-
Right, yeah, it's that whole parental thing, don't do as I do, do as I say, you know.
Okay,
everybody's
that's
like,
interesting, yeah.
jump off the cliff on that one. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, great, okay.
And this is piling on what Sandy was just talking about. You do a really good job in the second part of the presentation, bringing the audience in. And so I want to talk about stop, drop, and roll in a minute. But did you see Lou Heckler when he was here in October? Did you make it to that meeting?
No, I don't think so.
Lou Heckler does not do audience interaction. And yet, when you talk to his audiences after he's done a presentation, they feel like it was all about them because of the language he uses. And so I don't wanna give you too much to work on for Saturday. But in your first part where you're talking to the coaches and you say, you're talking about yourself over there as that athlete, or maybe you were talking about an athlete who was very talented but didn't put the work in. Maybe you've had an athlete like that too, once or twice.
Yeah, okay.
So make the coach think, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I've had that,
So
I've
kind
dealt
of
with
just
that
planting the
before.
seed.
So you just, all you have to do is, maybe you've had an athlete like that once or twice before. And all of a sudden, you're not just talking at them, you're talking to them.
Okay,
So just a couple of those little, because particularly you're 5 minutes in the first part,
yeah.
4 minutes in the first part, you don't, maybe 2 lines like that, if
Yeah,
you can
it's not
add
gonna
that.
take a lot
And
of
if you
time.
can't add it, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's something to think about going forward.
No, I think that's an easy add.
Okay, cool. And for the stop, drop, and roll, is there a way you can get 3 that are drop? I don't remember what your first 2 were, but only one of yours was actually drop in the toilet.
Oh.
The first 2, I was very confused because they were not drop words.
Yeah.
So if you could come up with 2 more that are drop, and can we help her? What else would you drop?
Give me the analogies that you
Yeah.
used before.
Well, it's not, I mean, yes, it's drop, but it's more just getting rid of the thought. So
Right.
it doesn't always, I mean, I get
But,
what you're
but
saying.
it's not stop, get rid of, and roll, it's stop, drop,
Right,
and roll.
right.
So if you're gonna use 3,
Mhm.
then they all 3 need to be dropped. But if you want to only use 1, you've got a really good one.
Yeah.
Just, and what you did there, and I don't know whether y'all caught this, was very subtle and really good. My favorite one is one that one of my clients gave me. Instant authority, and
Yep.
she's selling from the stage without selling from the stage.
Ah.
She's telling people that people
Hey, it was
pay
fun.
her
It was awesome.
to do this, yeah, so that's a great subtle sell. That's a Ruby sell, so that's really good. So, yeah, either one drop or come up with 2 more that are actually drop, not get rid of.
Okay.
I have a drop for you. Drop kick a ball,
Drop kick is good, yeah.
I know when I was a goalie, I used to drop the ball and kick it out of there.
Okay, so even like, because it's supposed to be mentally, so it could be visualizing yourself
Drop kicking.
dropping the
Dropping it.
ball and
Yeah,
kicking it out.
and that's,
Okay.
that's doing
Doing
double
better.
duty because it's sports.
Yeah,
Yep.
So if you can find
Okay.
one more sport one, that's fabulous.
yeah, okay,
Drop shot over the net, whatever.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Or
you,
just
Ed.
do one. Yeah. Fabulous.